All right, everyone. It seems we have everyone here for the meeting today. So welcome to today's PowerUp training. Today we will be reviewing online reservations and reservation requests. Now we do have a much smaller group here. I do ask that you guys still keep yourself mute until the end. We can review questions at the end. If you don't mind, type them into the chat box and we'll be able to go over them. So as you can see right now, I am on the director screen. I'm on the dashboard. We need to go to the Facilities tab, and we need to locate either the facility we want to put the requests on, or for those of you who have never done online reservations because you have an approval process where you need them to fill out a certain form, get certain signatures before you'll allow them to do the reservation, you'll want to create a new facility. So earlier today, I created an example here called Global Reservation Requests. Now, for some of you, it may be as simple as creating one facility that's a child of the location that you allow them to reserve. So you'll just be transferring from one to the other. For others, maybe you have multiple locations that you want to allow them to request at the same time. We have one group that allows several schools as well as other areas to be reserved through this reservation request process because they have a lot of things like marathons or shutting down Main Street for festivals or for events. So if you have that type of a case, you may want to just create a unique facility that's just for your reservation requests. And naming it reservation requests when it needs to be a request does help ensure that your community members will know that it's not a real reservation. Another thing to add is if you are worried that they'll still be confused and possibly think that just because they made the request that the reservation is occurring, you can type in a note on your facility and say this is for requests only. You will receive an invoice once your reservation has been approved. And then in the notes section, you'll want to check off the box to include that on the receipt. That way, when somebody signs up online, they're going to get that reminder on their email. You do not need to set up fee schedules for your reservation requests buildings because that's not something that everyone's really charging for, and reservation requests should really be coming through the community site, not necessarily through the director side. But for those of you who've already switched to the Flex Scheduler, make sure that all of your facilities that you will allow to be reserved and that you charge for to have a fee schedule to it. So make sure that this page has information on it if you're going to bill for it later. To create online reservations or to allow the community members to create online reservations, we're going to come here to this online reservation tab. Now, I already created a time block, but I'm going to create a new one because it doesn't matter how many time blocks you have. So if you need to create 2 every year because the cost to reserve or the ability to reserve off season is a different price than peak season, you can create 2 different availability schedules to cover those time frames. So you just click on Add New Availability Schedule, and you want to type in the name. For online reservation requests, we've seen this done a couple of ways. The name of it has been select your start time. Sometimes in this slot, what we'll see is select the first available time slot. Now, if you are allowing the specific location to be reserved, such as a tennis court or a basketball court or one of your fields, you can type in the type of reservation. So if you want it to be hourly or anything of that nature. So I'm going to show you a couple of different customer sites to show you how they're handling this. This customer has a little bit of a description at the top of their page that they asked us to add, just so that people who fell outside of the usual rates would be able to receive their discounts or be able to even sign up to request the use of those pavilions. This is another group that uses reservation requests, and they added a message up at the top. They asked to be added that basically gives customers instructions for what to do to make a request. Hit the reserve button. They want them to hit the reserve on the date that they would like to have the reservation on. And for them, they have, please select the first available time slot. This is just a placeholder time. So you can phrase it however you like. We've got other customers that are using this for their golf courses so that customers can choose their tee times. Or for those of you who want your facilities to be reserved in time blocks, because the way that your fee structure works is the same deposit for a 2-hour reservation is the same as a 3-hour reservation. You would be able to create multiple online availability schedules to cover the 2-hour time period for collecting a security deposit or a 3-hour time period and collecting a security deposit. So this is all based on what you would like to build and what would help your organizations the most. So if I come over here, I had used an hourly time block as an example before. So if I do a pick your start time, I can do that. Now the start and the end date. At this time, we have a limit of 1 year. So you can only go a maximum of 1 year out from here. Now you can update this at any point in the future. So for those of you who allow year-round reservations, some of my customers at the end of the week or the end of the month, what they'll do is they'll go in and they'll edit these online availability schedules and they'll just push the start date out and the end date out so that it just continues to allow the furthest full year. For those of you who want to restrict who can do an online reservation, the only restriction we have at this time is a passcode option. So earlier today, we had somebody who has tennis members, a tennis membership, and they only want their tennis members to sign up for it. So I made the suggestion of creating a passcode that's just something like Tennis 1 or something that she can give to the people who belong to the tennis membership and tell them that they need to use this code in order to reserve the tennis courts online. And you can do the same thing if you only want your coaches to be able to reserve the fields online or anything restrictive of that nature. And then you want to come here and you want to create your time blocks. So if you want to allow them to start at 8 o'clock, or, even if you want to set up start times on the 30-minute time blocks, we're only asking them to set up the time here. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a tedious thing to do. You're going to need to select each time and each time frame that they can choose online. Remember, it's one of those tedious things where once you build it, it's there. And unless you need to edit it in the future, like updating the date range or updating the fee amount, you're not going to really need to change this piece very much again in the future. But that's all you need to do to build that out. And once you have your time slots that you want your members to be able to select from entered, you check off the days of the week that they'll be allowed to be used. So I used the example earlier. If this location allows a start time of 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, but on Saturdays and Sundays it doesn't open till 9 a.m., I just don't check off those time periods because those time slots are not valid for that date. And for those of you who may be sitting here and be a little worried about, oh, but what if I have something else going on those dates and times? This is a wide range. What happens? Any current reservation, program schedule, league schedule, anything that you've already put into the system will shut down the ability to reserve those dates because they've already been reserved. So that's the difference right there, is that it's going to shut down if that period is already blocked off. And then you choose your fee name. So I'm going to call this reservation request, because I'm just making this one as a reservation request. If you would like to charge them, So if you want it to be $10 per hour or, $10 per time slot or however you charge them, you want to enter those values here. So it would be $10 per time slot. And if you have a security deposit, you would enter the security deposit as well. Keep in mind that these fee amounts and deposit amounts will be a per time slot period. So if you do a $10 deposit, regardless of if it's a 1 hour reservation or a 5 hour reservation, you will want to create multiple online availability schedules so that they're only paying the single deposit amount. Now, one restriction that we do have in place is residency restriction. If you have your residency settings set on your system, you're going to be able to say that only residents can choose this fee or non-residents can choose this fee. And then you'll click on Save. And there's 2 steps before you can see this availability time, this online availability schedule on the community site. Whether you want a required lead time for the number of days in advance. So I'm going to use this customer as an example again. If I go to their schedule, you see how I cannot click the word reserve until the 20th. It's because they have it set up that requests can only go in 7 days in advance. So that's basically what it does, is it takes away the reserve button for 7 days in the immediate future so that it gives you that gap to be able to have time to process whether it's a real reservation, so you need to make sure that it's scheduled, or if it's a reservation request so that you have time to review and approve the reservation itself. And then you need to make sure that you click this button here to enable online reservations. If you don't see red here, then it is not visible on the community site. Now, one last thing is the Forms tab. For online reservation or online reservation requests, if you want people to fill out a form during that checkout process, maybe if you're allowing online pavilions, you want them to sign off on your rules and regulations, basically what type of fire they're allowed to have, if any, those types of policies. Or for reservation requests, I'll show you the form that I created for this example where you can gather more information. And you'll just want to assign that to the facility. And we recommend that is per registration with no marked for partial completion. Partial completion will allow people to skip required fields, so it's never recommended that you allow that to happen. And on the community site, what they're going to be able to do is click on Sign In. And then they'll be able to go to their Facility tab. Now, I'm doing this reservation through the request, so please bear with me so that you can just see the harder version. See how there are certain days that don't have the word reserve to it that are further out? It's because there's either a reservation request in for all those time blocks, or the parent facility for this is reserved on those 2 dates, so it is no longer available for the public to be able to even request. So I'm going to click on the word reserve, and you type in, the reason why and the group size here. Now, this was an example of the hourly time blocks. If I wanted them to be able to pay $10 per hour, this is what it would look like. If I wanted it to be just pick the start time because I'm having them do a request, I would have them come here and select the time that they want their reservation to begin and add it to the cart. They're still going to have to complete checkout, and they'll still have to accept your online waiver. So if you've never allowed online reservations or online reservations to take place and you are wondering about what you should do here, what I would recommend is, if you don't have a copy of your waiver text, ask your CSM for that information. so that if you need to add or edit any of the data that it says, or add or edit the waiver so that it'll include reservations, it will be added to that piece. But they'll accept the waiver, and I'm going to click on complete form. This is an example based off of a couple of forms that I've worked with customers to make, where instead of asking the person's name, we're asking for the site contact, because, well, I might be the person who is filling out the online reservation request form. My husband is actually going to be the person on site. So I would enter his name and his contact number. Now I gave this an open block area to be able to write the reason for the reservation, so that if it's something bigger, like maybe it's a birthday party and a family reunion, they can respond to that. I always recommend that you add expected attendance number here too. Although they may have said 30 on the first screen, that number may jump on the next screen. So this is more of a, how many people do you expect? Some people get this a little bit better, and they'll put the more realistic value here than they will on the other end. But you don't have to add these fields, and anyone who's listening, none of this is required. This is just an example of a more complicated flex form for these types of reservations. So for those who want them to be able to make a reservation request from multiple places, this is how you're going to be able to do it. You can add a field in the form listing the locations so that they know which locations they want to reserve. Now, this form, again, this one is a very exaggerated form, so I also added a please enter the dates and times you would like to request, because we all know that sometimes this is going to be I need December 7th through the 9th. From 8 to 6 p.m. daily. It's easier for them to just type it out when it's a repeat. And if it's a single day, then it's an easy enough thing for them to type out. But you can collect this data in a few ways. I'm just using this as an example. You can also ask these types of questions, as well as get your message out that if alcohol is going to be served, there's an additional cost. So you're telling them right here that there's going to be an additional fee if they're serving alcohol. So as you can see, I'm just going through. And this is an important one that I just started to add because I've heard this more recently, where some places are requiring insurance, proof of insurance. Now, some people that are homeowners, their homeowners insurance can be extended to these types of locations. So they already have an insurance provider that can take care of it. And other people don't. So sometimes when you're doing these types of application processes, I think it's a good idea to ask that question so that you know if you need to message the customer and tell them how to obtain it. Any other additional request or information they'd like to get across can be done during this process, as well as procedures and rules that you can have them print their name and sign off on. Now, this is, again, another really in-depth form. So you don't need to do this, but if your office would like to turn this request form into some type of physical permit or some type of record keeping for in-house approval, I've had some groups add an area that says, do not fill out below for internal use only, so that later on when the person sends them proof of insurance, they can upload that, because you can view edit the flex form and you can include that with the reservation and have everything all in one area. You can even add approval processes for yourself so that you can say that the rec department has yes, no, or pending with who in the staff and their signature. Now, I did not do a good job. I dropped in some weird elements here, but some of my customers are even sending the flex form response on the director side to their police, fire, EMS, maintenance, school staff, all sorts of other departments that need to sign off and approve on a reservation. This process is one that you can get them to partake in if they are interested in, and if you're interested in doing it that way, because this is something that you'll be able to provide them to log in and update. So then they'll submit the form, hit I have completed all forms. Now, since this is a $0 reservation, because this is a true reservation request, I just click continue. For those of you who would be looking to do real reservations where people are paying at that screen, they would just enter their credit card information. Now, for those of you who have profiles that would like to get an email when an online reservation is made, what you want to do is whoever is a director in your system, if you're not one, ask them to go to your profile and check off the box for the user alert for online reservation made. What'll happen is every time an online reservation is made, you're going to get an email that lets you know, and you're going to be able to go into your recent reservations on your dashboard. And this is a really good shortcut because as you can see, I can see in the name that this is a reservation request. And I can also see that this was the one that was just done online with the date and the time. From here, when I click on it, it takes me to this details page, which is where you really want to start out because you're going to be able to click on form actions and click on this print button to get the information. So you can see all the rooms, the dates, the times, whether additional charges will matter here. And then you can close this. If you don't need other departments to sign off before moving on to the next step, we're going to go on to the next step, which has two options. And I always throw out both because some people tell me that they want to track the requests. If you want to track the request, keep this occurrence. Don't edit it, because that way you'll be able to track it under the reservation request facility. If you don't care about tracking who made the request, you just care about the actual real reservation. If this is one of those, you can only rent one facility, but the request form is to be able to rent that facility, hit edit occurrence. This will allow you to change the facility to the actual facility, and then you're going to be able to adjust the fees. So I can change it to my hourly rate, and I can add in the add-on fees if any are applicable. For the more advanced scheduler, so when they're looking to request multiple facilities at the same time, hit this edit entire series. This will allow you to hit add new time slots so that you can add all of the locations. And now I apologize, I don't think I have meeting rooms in here, so we're just going to choose a random facility here and click continue. So if they needed it from the 7th to the 9th, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., what I want to do is put my first date here. So I can check off reoccurring because this is something that needs to happen for 2 days in a row. So I can either have it end after 2 days, or I could say that this ends on the 9th. And I can put the actual dates in here. Now, a thing to keep in mind here is you can do setup and tear down as a separate piece. So if they need to come in an hour beforehand to set up, you can still set up the 60 minutes beforehand and the 60 minutes at the end of the day. Then when you click continue, you're going to be able to select and assign your fees to each facility. So if there's a kitchen fee, if there's scoreboard, if there's lights, you can add those in. Now, this is a reminder for anybody who has not built their fee schedules. If you go to reserve that facility and you have not built a fee schedule, you will not be able to charge for it during this process. You will have to stop, go back to your facilities tab, update it, and then re-enter the information. So then we hit continue. This is going to give us a brief overview of the reservation itself. And here's where if you ever get stuck and you have a date on here that shouldn't be there, you can always check the box off and delete selected. Click on Save Reservation. Now I'm going to skip over this because I don't really mind the conflicts for the purpose of this training. And then I want to click on View Reservation. Because I've made those changes, I can now go to the invoice, and now the invoice has a real value on it. When it was initially created, it was a $0 invoice because it was just a reservation request. So that's when the change occurred. Now, a good thing to note is if you have some type of schedule that you require the fees to be paid on, like if the whole amount is due by a certain date, make sure you click Edit and you update your due date. If you have a payment plan, maybe you want to have them pay, $200 right away, and then the rest will be due before the reservation. You can click on the Create Payment Plan, Create Custom Payment Plan. Now I'm just going to click on Send Installment Due Email. If you do not have authorized.net and stored credit cards, you will not be able to enroll in AutoPay because you will need to have a stored credit card number here. So Send Installment Email Due would be for everybody else. Now this is a bit of a workaround. I recommend you leave it on the pay frequency of daily and then edit the number of payments that you're looking to have them make. Because then on the next screen, you're going to have control. You're going to be able to say that you want this first amount to be $200. And then the second amount to be $945. But that second amount, we can say it's not going to be due until November 29th. So when we create the payment plan, the benefit of this is that when we send the invoice to the customer, they'll be able to pay the initial $200, and then the due date on the invoice is going to update to 11/29. Now, once you have your invoice looking the way that you want the member to see, click on Actions and Send Invoice to Customer. This is where you're going to be able to say, spelling reservation correct, reservation approved. And you can update the body of the email. Just please leave the blue hyperlink alone. That blue hyperlink is what your members are going to receive in their email, and they're going to be able to click on so that they can decide to either pay the full amount or they can pay the next installment. And those are all the steps you would need to know to be able to do online reservations or to be able to utilize it as an online reservation request. Now I am going to go in now and ask if there are any questions. I see that some questions were already answered before I got to it, so I'm going to skip down to Doug. He got here a little bit late. Yes, Doug, this video will be available tomorrow, probably later on in the afternoon. And if you all click on your support center, if you scroll down, we actually have under promoted articles, one called PowerUp with RecDesk. This is the quickest way to get to this page. This is going to this has our YouTube channel embedded in it. And this is where our PowerUp videos will automatically appear as soon as I get a chance to upload it to YouTube. It's just usually not until the next day. Keep in mind, if you've missed any of the other PowerUps and you'd like to see those videos, you can click on that button, the filter button here, and choose which one you'd like to view. Or if you'd like to just go to our YouTube channel, at the bottom of the support center, you can click on our YouTube button here, and that will take you to our YouTube channel where we have a bunch of videos available and a ton of playlists, so you can take a look there as well.